Before we begin, take a moment right now. If you respect history, if you believe real wealth is hidden in unexpected places, and if you don't want to miss stories that most people will never hear, make sure you subscribe to this channel. What you're about to see is not entertainment. It's knowledge. And knowledge, as many of you already know, is power. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever held a coin in your hand and wondered where it had been before it reached you? Who touched it? Who carried it in their pocket? What silent moments of history passed while it waited, unnoticed? Today's story is about one such coin. A small coin. A forgotten coin. Yet one that has caused seasoned collectors to stop breathing for a moment when they realized what they were looking at. South Africa. The year 1947, the world was still recovering from war. Nations were rebuilding. Men were returning home older, quieter, changed. Money was scarce, and every coin mattered. In South Africa, a quarter-denomination coin was minted quietly, without celebration, without ceremony. No one at the time believed it would ever be special. It was simply currency, used for bread, used for transport, used, spent, and often lost. But history has a strange habit of hiding value in plain sight. This particular 1947 quarter coin was produced during a period of transition. The metal, the strike, the pressure used at the mint, and even the dies themselves were part of a system under stress. Machines were aging. Skilled workers were few. And mistakes, the kind that change everything decades later, were far more likely. Most people never noticed. Most people never cared. But collectors did. Years passed. Coins were melted, damaged, worn smooth by time. Very few survived in exceptional condition. Fewer still survived untouched, uncleaned, unaltered. And among those survivors, a tiny number carried subtle differences so small that only trained eyes could see them. Differences in spacing, differences in metal density, differences in strike depth and alignment, the kind of details that don't shout. They whispered. Older collectors often say the same thing. Real treasures don't announce themselves. They wait to be recognized. Men who have spent decades studying coins know that value isn't about size. It's about story. It's about rarity. It's about timing. And above all, it's about survival. This coin survived political change, it survived economic shifts, it survived being overlooked. At some point, someone finally stopped and asked a dangerous question. What if this isn't just another coin? Tests were done. Comparisons made. Old mint records studied by hand, line by line. Patterns emerged that shouldn't have existed. A batch that didn't match others. A run that may never have been officially recorded. Coins that should not have been released, but were. That's when the whispers started. Not online rumors, not casual talk. Serious conversations behind closed doors, private collectors. Men who don't waste words or time. The coin was no longer currency. It was evidence. Evidence of a moment in history when rules bent. When errors slipped through. When something incredibly rare escaped into the world unnoticed. And here's what many people fail to understand. The value of a coin like this doesn't come from gold or silver alone. It comes from the fact that you cannot recreate it. You cannot reproduce its moment. You cannot go back to 1947 and strike it again under the same conditions. Time itself is the ingredient you can't replace. That's why men in their later years understand this better than anyone. You've lived long enough to know that rarity increases with survival. That what lasts becomes valuable not because it's flashy, but because it endures. Imagine a coin sitting in a drawer for decades, passed down without knowing, dismissed as ordinary, until one day, someone who knows what to look for picks it up, and everything changes. Phone calls are made, meetings arranged, offers discussed quietly, no auctions, no advertisements. Because coins like this don't belong in public noise. They move in silence. And now we reach the part most people will struggle to believe. Not because it isn't possible, but because they've been trained to underestimate small things. When this specific South Africa one-quarter coin from 1947 is confirmed, authenticated, and matched to the rare characteristics known only to a handful of experts, its value does not sit in the thousands. It does not stop at millions. According to private collector valuation discussions, the number attached to this coin has reached a level that changes lives. The estimated value placed on this coin is $64 million. And that is why you should never ignore what looks ordinary. Because history doesn't repeat loudly. It hides, and it waits for the right eyes to see it. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Every week, we bring you the rarest finds, the forgotten stories, and the treasures hiding in plain sight. Your subscription helps this journey continue, and I promise, what we are about to uncover today is truly extraordinary. Imagine a coin so small, so humble, that most people would pass it by without a second glance. A coin that never officially entered circulation, a coin struck in a moment of global tension, wartime pressure, and economic uncertainty. Now imagine that same coin surviving for more than 8 decades, quietly sitting in the dark, waiting for the world to rediscover its secrets. That coin is the South Africa 1/4 penny dated 1942, cataloged by collectors as KMPN3, and it carries with it a history far richer than its size would ever suggest. To understand why this coin matters, we must step back into the year 1942. The world was deep in the turmoil of the Second World War. Nations were struggling to control their economies, secure their resources, and maintain order under the weight of conflict. South Africa, attached to the British Commonwealth and deeply involved in the war effort, faced its own set of challenges. Every grain of metal, every bit of copper, bronze, or nickel had to be accounted for. Coins were not simply small pieces of metal. They were vital tools of commerce and stability. In this environment, mints around the world experimented with new designs and denominations. Some were tested, some were approved. Many never saw the light of day. And among those quiet experiments was the plan for a small, lightweight coin worth 1/4 of a penny. It was designed to be efficient, economical, and easy to produce during a time when every resource mattered. A handful of trial pieces were struck so the government could evaluate whether the design, size, and metal composition were practical for mass production. That tiny group of experimental strikes is what we now call the 1942 South Africa 1/4 penny pattern. Pattern coins are unlike regular coins. They are not meant for circulation. They exist for consultation, for evaluation, for testing. Most patterns are melted after the decision is made. Only a few survive. And that scarcity is what has turned these forgotten test pieces into treasures beyond imagination. Collectors often describe this coin as a whisper from the past. Patterns have no guarantee of survival, and most governments did not consider them items worth preserving. Employees sometimes pocketed them as curiosities, or they ended up in old mint archives where later generations would stumble upon them by accident. That rarity, combined with the historical moment in which they were created, has turned coins like this into some of the most sought-after pieces in the numismatic world. But what makes the South Africa 1/4 penny from 1942 stand apart is not just its scarcity. It is the context of its creation. South Africa was shifting its currency image, incorporating local symbolism while still acknowledging its ties to the British Commonwealth. Every coin design was a negotiation between tradition and independence. This tiny piece of metal represented the early steps of a nation beginning to craft a visual identity of its own, while the world around it struggled to maintain stability. Collectors above the age of 50 often say that coins like this speak to them because they lived through times when objects held value beyond price. Tools were repaired, not thrown away. Memories were built around moments, not screens. A coin from 1942 carries with it that same sense of endurance. It is a survivor from a world that was breaking apart and rebuilding itself at the same time. For many collectors, holding a coin like this is like holding a piece of their own younger years, even if they were not yet born. It is a reminder of the generation that raised them, a generation forged in hardship and resilience. Today, when people discover a coin like the 1942 1/4 penny, they do not just see metal. They see craftsmanship. They see history. They see a story worth telling and preserving. And that is why men and women across the world spend their later years exploring the world of rare coins. It is not just a hobby. It is a connection to something that lasts, something that matters, something that speaks long after the people who created it are gone. Now, you might wonder how a coin with such a small face value, a coin that was never meant for circulation, could become such a prized possession. The answer lies in the perfect combination of rarity, condition, provenance, and historical significance. When a coin exists in only a handful of surviving examples, when it was part of a brief experiment during wartime, and when collectors recognize its role in shaping a nation's currency identity, its value does not simply rise. It skyrockets. Every great treasure has a turning point, a moment when the world suddenly realizes what it overlooked. For the 1942 South Africa one-quarter penny, that moment came when numismatists began to recognize how few pattern coins from the era survived. And once that realization spread, the value of the coin became the stuff of legends, which brings us to today's final revelation. You came here not just for the history, not just for the story, but for the number. So here it is. When found in pristine, immaculate, untouched condition, when fully authenticated and presented to the right collector or at a high-profile international auction, the estimated upper value of this remarkable 1942 South Africa one-quarter penny pattern can reach the astonishing figure of $7 million. If you enjoyed learning the story behind this extraordinary treasure, remember to subscribe so you never miss another journey into the rarest corners of history. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe and stay with me until the end, because the final value I reveal for this 1977 South African Krugerrand will leave you stunned. Today, I want to take you on a journey, not just into the world of coins, but into the world of history, power, wealth, and the quiet stories that gold has carried for generations. Many of you watching, especially gentlemen between the ages of 55 and 65, already understand the weight of real value. You've seen markets rise, collapse, recover, and reshape themselves. You've watched trends come and go. But gold has always remained. And among gold coins, the South African Krugerrand stands as one of the most iconic pieces ever struck. Picture the year 1977. In the world of global finance, uncertainty was everywhere. Inflation was rising. Economies were shifting. But for men who understood wealth, for investors who believed in something solid, something you could hold in your hand, the Krugerrand became a symbol of stability. While other governments were experimenting with currency policies and printing new forms of money, South Africa struck these powerful coins with a simple mission: make gold accessible. Not just for museums or bankers, but for everyday people who wanted a direct connection to value. Now, the 1977 Krugerrand didn't become famous through flashy designs or artistic complexity. In fact, its design is a lesson in quiet confidence. On one side, the profile of Paul Kruger, a stern, determined face representing history, leadership, and resilience. On the other, a springbok antelope racing across the plains, a reminder of natural strength, independence, and the raw beauty of South Africa. Nothing exaggerated, nothing shouting for attention. The coin simply exists with the certainty that anyone who holds it will feel its importance. And for collectors today, that sense of importance has only grown. Many younger collectors chase modern commemoratives or limited edition series, but men of your generation understand the difference between trend and legacy. A 1977 Krugerrand isn't just a collectible. It's a symbol of an era when gold wasn't a digital concept or a number on a screen. It was something you could weigh in your palm, something that carried its worth in silence. The coin itself contains 1 full ounce of fine gold, but its story carries much more than that. When these coins first appeared on the global market, they changed the world of private gold ownership. They helped introduce millions to investing in bullion long before the modern boom of gold bars, ETFs, or digital trading. If you held a Krugerrand in the late 70s or 80s, it meant you understood something others didn't. That real wealth is measured not only by numbers, but by the tangible security of precious metal. For many men today, the Krugerrand isn't just a piece of gold. It's a memory. Maybe it reminds you of your father or grandfather, a man who kept his investments in a safe, not an app. Maybe it takes you back to conversations about economic cycles, interest rates, or the lessons learned from financial storms. Or maybe it represents something more personal, a time when saving and investing felt like a craft, not a race. And that is exactly why this 1977 piece holds a unique emotional and historical power. It belongs to a generation that knew the meaning of long-term thinking, a generation that understands the importance of protecting their legacy. Collectors who acquire this coin today aren't buying gold. They're buying a story. They're buying a piece of time preserved in metal. They're buying the certainty that future generations will hold it and feel the same weight of history. Now imagine the journey of a single Krugerrand across 48 years. Think of the hands it might have passed through. A miner deep underground pulling the ore that would one day melt into this coin. A mint worker striking the die with precision. A buyer in the 70s slipping it into a leather pouch as a hedge against uncertain times. A collector in the 90s polishing it before placing it into a display case. A new owner today, cherishing it not as currency, but as a link to a different era. Coins like this aren't just relics. They're witnesses, silent observers of changing times and changing lives. Even the wear along the edges tells a story. A tiny scratch might reflect a moment of transfer. A slight tone in the gold may show decades of careful storage. Every detail builds a lifetime of history. That is what makes a 1977 South African Krugerrand so compelling. And for collectors, for investors, for men who understand value beyond numbers, this coin is more than a piece of bullion. It is a testament to strength, stability, and wisdom earned through lived experience. So if you are someone who appreciates craftsmanship, legacy, and the quiet power of gold, this coin stands among the greatest symbols of real wealth ever created. And now we arrive at the moment you've been waiting for. The value. After exploring its history, meaning, and legacy, the final number carries even more weight. This particular 1977 South African Krugerrand, in the rare condition and context we are highlighting today, carries an astonishing estimated value of $23 million. A figure as unbelievable as it is unforgettable. If you enjoyed this journey and want more stories of remarkable coins and hidden treasures, make sure you subscribe and stay tuned. There are many more legends waiting to be revealed. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe so you never miss another story about the treasures hiding in pockets, drawers, and old forgotten tins around the world. Your support keeps this channel going, and every new subscriber helps bring more history, more mystery, and more remarkable discoveries right to you. Today I want to take you on a journey that starts with something so familiar, so ordinary, that most people overlook it without a second glance. If you've ever spent time collecting old coins, or even if you've simply kept a jar of change over the years, then you already know that a simple piece of metal can carry far more than its monetary value. It carries stories, it carries memory, and sometimes it even carries the chance of extraordinary fortune. Our story revolves around the South African 5-cent coin from the year 2010, a tiny copper-plated steel disc that circulated through countless hands, markets, pockets, and shops across the country. Most people spent it without thinking twice. To them, it was just small change, barely enough to buy anything, often slipping through fingertips or forgotten in ashtrays and jacket pockets. But for collectors, nothing is ever just small change. Every coin has a life, a purpose, a journey. Even a common coin can earn a place in the world of numismatics when something about it stands out, something subtle or unexpected. And the older we get, the more we understand how these little pieces of history can connect us to the past, to our younger days, and to the stories of the world around us. Many men watching this right now might remember the days when coins meant something different. When you could walk into a store with a few cents and feel like you had options. When pocket change was a part of everyday life, not something slowly disappearing in a world edging closer and closer to digital payments. So when you hold an old coin in your hand today, it's not just a piece of metal. It's a link to a time when money felt tangible, when you could hear its weight, feel its texture, and know that even the smallest coin had a place and a purpose. The South Africa 5 cents 2010 coin might seem like one of those modern coins that doesn't look old enough to matter yet. But that is where the beauty of numismatics lies. It isn't always about age. Sometimes it's about survival. Sometimes it's about rarity within the ordinary. And sometimes it's about the unexpected stories that grow around a coin, the whispers among collectors, the legends that turn a simple piece of change into something much bigger than anyone imagined. Now, most 2010 South African 5 cents coins were minted in large quantities, used in everyday transactions, and carried no special features. But every year, a handful of coins escape the minting process with small differences. These differences can be tiny: imperfections, misalignments, off-center strikes, planchet errors, unusual finishes, or even small variations that occur when the minting dies were down. While these might seem insignificant, collectors often chase such coins for years, hoping to find one with a rare flaw or an exceptionally preserved strike. For older collectors, especially men who grew up in the era when saving coins was a hobby passed down from fathers and grandfathers, the thrill of the hunt is something that never fades. You know the feeling, the quiet excitement of flipping a coin over in your palm, examining it under a lamp, noticing a detail that most people would miss. You recognize the value of patience, of careful observation, of understanding that rarity is not always obvious. Sometimes rarity hides in plain sight. Imagine a coin that has traveled for 15 years through hands that never knew what they were holding. Imagine a coin that sat in a drawer untouched, avoided the scratches and dents of daily use. Or maybe one that came off the minting press with an anomaly so subtle only a seasoned collector could appreciate it. Over time, stories begin to form. Word spreads. Collectors start asking questions. Has anyone ever seen a perfect specimen? Has anyone come across a misstruck version? Has anyone found the coin that pulls ahead of the rest? And as these stories grow, the legend grows with them. The value of a coin is not only determined by the metal it contains or the date stamped upon it. Value is shaped by rarity, condition, demand, and sometimes by the myths and expectations created within the collecting community. Just like antique rifles, vintage cars, or old timepieces, coins gain their worth from the stories they carry and the hands that seek them. Every collector knows that once in a while, a rumor emerges about an extraordinary sale. A private collector pays a staggering sum for a coin that others would overlook. A bidding war erupts over a piece believed to be the finest known example. A coin once considered common suddenly becomes legendary because of one rare feature, one perfect condition, or one passionate buyer willing to pay more than anyone thought possible. That is where today's story reaches its dramatic point. While the standard South Africa 5 cents 2010 coin remains ordinary in everyday circulation, tales have emerged of a particular specimen, a coin said to be preserved in exceptional condition, possibly unique, and reportedly the subject of a private collector's interest at a price that would shake anyone listening. These claims remain part of the fascinating world of numismatic lore, stories shared among collectors with a blend of curiosity, excitement, and disbelief. And according to those stories, the price whispered for that extraordinary specimen is an astonishing $4.7 million. Whether this legendary sale is fact, fiction, or simply one of those numismatic tales that grows larger with each retelling, it remains a reminder of the incredible world hidden within the smallest objects we carry. So the next time you come across a South African 5 cents 2010 coin, don't underestimate it. You never know what story might be hidden in your pocket.